She discovered a hidden invitation, and it led to an incredible billionaire wedding experience. Emily's heart raced as she clutched the ornate envelope to her chest. It felt like fate had picked her out of the crowd, whispering promises of a life beyond the checkered linoleum floors of her family's diner. In modest Maplewood, where everyone knew everyone and secrets swirled like autumn leaves, this was no ordinary find. It was an invitation to the opulent wedding of a billionaire's daughter. She could almost see the crystal chandeliers sparkling against the velvet drapes, feel the elegance radiating off the guests dressed in designer gowns and tailored suits. As she stood in the library, surrounded by books that held 1,000 stories, her thoughts raced. The invitation, wedged in a dusty classic, felt electric. Maybe, just maybe, this was a chance to escape the weight of her responsibilities to her younger brother, Jake, and the leftover guilt for not being able to give her family what they deserved. Growing up in a small town tied her to her roots, but those roots felt heavy when she longed for something more. She could already imagine herself dressed to the nines, gliding through a crowd that didn't know the struggles of an everyday waitress. But the shadows of her past crept in, the disappointment in her father's eyes when he spoke of lost dreams, his buzz of bitterness still echoing against the raw edges of her mind. With her heart warring between excitement and anxiety, she decided to attend. After all, what was the worst that could happen? Climbing into the world of wealth and glamour might just give her the strength she needed to carve a new path. As she balanced her anticipation with the reminders of her father's struggles, Emily's sense of self began to unravel. What if she was still that poor girl, unworthy of this new reality? The thought struck her like a punch to her gut. She pushed it aside, determined to embrace this moment, if only for a day. When the day arrived, the wedding venue, a sprawling mansion with perfectly manicured lawns, took her breath away. It felt too grand, too polished for someone like her. The laughter of the elite seemed to drown out her own heartbeat. As she stood at the door, anxiety wrapped around her like a tight embrace. She wanted to flee, yet a fierce determination anchored her to the spot. Deep breaths, Emily. You can do this. Before we continue, I need to let you know about something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to the system, and many people are losing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, hit that bell and mark all notifications so you don't miss the next videos. And if you can drop a like, it really helps me with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, let me know in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now let's continue. There it was, the rush of emotions hitting her like a wave, surging and crashing. As the ceremony began, she found herself captivated by the beauty around her. Yet amidst the vows exchanged, a spark ignited. She felt the disenchantment of her upbringing press against her heart. Enough was enough. No more silence. Shaking with a mix of fear and triumph, she stood up. The laughter faded into whispers, eyes glued to her. "This isn't just about love and wealth," she declared, her voice trembling yet powerful. "It's about remembering where we come from. We can't forget the struggles behind our smiles." What had she done? As murmurs filled the air, she faced the crowd, heart pounding, nerves racing, knowing she had stirred something deep within not just herself, but everyone watching, and awakening to their unspoken truths. Would her courageous claim draw her closer to a new world, or push her back into the shadows? The hushed whispers cascaded around the room, a tide of shock and disbelief flowing from the guests as Emily stood at the center, exposed and raw. Faces that had been filled with joy a moment ago were now clouded with surprise. Their laughter, once a symphony of wealth, had transformed into a backdrop of uncertainty. Emily's cheeks burned crimson, and her hands trembled. The weight of a million eyes was heavy, rooting her to the spot. But in that moment, a strange warmth blossomed in her chest. It was an unfamiliar sensation, yet intoxicating. She was aware she might have jeopardized this day, but for the first time in years, she felt seen. Here she was, a voice against the grand overtures of privilege, demanding to be heard. What an audacity! A voice rang out from somewhere near the front, dripping with disdain. Who does she think she is? Unperturbed, Emily lifted her chin. "A person," she declared boldly. "A person who thinks it's time we acknowledge the truth while celebrating love." From the corner of her eye, she caught the bride, a striking figure in layers of satin and lace, staring wide-eyed. Then, As if triggered by Emily's words, the crowd began shifting. Some squirmed in their seats, while others murmured to their companions, weighing her unexpected bravery against their assumptions about the day. Love is beautiful, Emily continued, her voice steadier now, passion surging. But so is struggle, so is honesty. All at once, she felt a shift. The tension started to crack, and a few murmurs of agreement flitted through the audience. A woman in a vibrant green dress, with silver streaking her hair, nodded slowly. Yes, we cannot forget the people who made these moments possible, she added, her voice cutting through the uncertainty. Emily's heart raced at the recognition. Hope flickered. She wasn't alone anymore. As the guests began to rally their thoughts, a man stood up. He exuded an air of confidence, the kind she had previously thought impervious, encased in the bubble of wealth. I agree, he stated firmly. In the rush of our lives, perhaps it's time we include those who have shaped where we stand today. A hush fell over the room, and Emily seized the moment. We all have stories. It doesn't matter how much money you have or where you come from. I'm just asking us to remember that love is rooted in real-life struggles. It's what makes it all worthwhile. The applause erupted, unexpected and overwhelming. She could see the bride's initial shock transform into a look of admiration. There was a mix of disbelief and exhilaration among the guests, but the mood had undeniably turned. The sound of clapping grew, a wave moving through the crowd, fueling her courage. As the applause continued, Emily's thoughts surged with possibilities. Perhaps she could be part of something greater, a voice that connected the wealth of experience in this opulent room with the struggles of everyday life. Before she could fully grasp this new direction, the bride stepped forward, a gleam of appreciation in her expression. I believe you're right, the bride said. We've lost touch with the stories that brought us together. She took a deep breath, the crowd hanging on to her every word. Let us celebrate this love, but let us do it with a recognition of our pasts. With that, the room erupted again, and Emily smiled through tears. This wasn't just a wedding. It was an awakening, a celebration of more than just wealth and love. It was a moment that could redefine connections. But as the crowd settled back into joyous celebration, a shadow crossed Emily's mind, a lurking question about what had just transpired. What would her role be now? Could she use this moment to change her life forever? As she blended into the beginnings of a new conversation, a tall, mysterious figure caught her eye from across the room, an enigmatic presence that seemed to watch her with an intensity that sent shivers down her spine. What did this silent observer want? Emily's heart raced as the tall figure continued to hold her gaze. He was lean, his features sharp and refined. The flicker of candlelight caught the edge of his jaw, a sharp contrast to the murmur of delight that surrounded her. Why did it feel like he was standing apart from the celebration, yet completely absorbed in her? She shifted on her feet, torn between curiosity and apprehension. As the crowd engaged in light conversation, laughter blooming like flowers around her, Emily felt a knot tighten in her stomach. Who was he? Before she could summon the courage to approach, he began to move. The distance between them closed with each confident stride. Emily felt a mixture of thrill and fear. What would he say? Did he agree with her boldness? Or was he a part of the privileged world she challenged? Emily, he spoke, his voice smooth and steady, breaking through the din. It was the first time anyone had uttered her name with such familiarity, like he had stepped out of the shadows she had grown used to. Why, yes, she managed, her voice just above a whisper, the noise around them fading like an echo. I'm Alexander, he introduced himself, extending a hand in a graceful arc. His touch was electric when her fingers met his, a connection that felt completely foreign, yet deeply magnetic. I have to tell you, what you did back there, it was remarkable. Emily's eyes widened. You really think so? She asked, her disbelief evident. You weren't just, part of the crowd? A smirk played on his lips. Quite the opposite. I was actually hoping to escape a bit of the glitz and find something real in the room. He gestured towards the raucous laughter that filled the space. You've brought a spark of honesty into an otherwise glossy atmosphere. It's refreshing. She felt warmth bloom in her chest again, this time from pride. Thank you. She paused, uncertain if she wanted to share her vulnerability, but the sincerity in his gaze encouraged her. I've felt invisible among all this for a long time. It was time to speak up. He nodded, the intensity of his gaze holding her. That's why I was drawn to you, Emily. You remind me that beyond this facade of wealth, there's a deeper essence we often overlook. The irony wasn't he lost on her. Here he was a man with privilege and spades championing her words. But isn't this world all you know? She asked, a subtle challenge buried within her curious tone that he took a step closer, his voice dropping to a conspiratorial hush. I know enough. And I also know it's all meaningless if we don't connect on a human level. Money can't buy truth. As she absorbed his words, Emily could feel the rhythms of the party swirling around them. The laughter stirred up dust motes in the golden light. But she felt weightless, as if time had slowed. Before she could respond, Alexander's gaze flickered to the bride, who was catching her breath nearby, surrounded by those eager to talk and toast. I have an idea, he said, his tone shifting from intimate to conspiratorial. Why don't we take this conversation somewhere more private? There's so much more I'd like to share with you. Her pulse quickened. What could he possibly know that would intrigue her? And then, there was the looming question, what if she ventured down this path, where privilege mingled with deep truths? She had already stepped outside her comfort zone once today. Okay, she agreed, excitement bubbling to the surface. Just then, the bride caught sight of them. A look of recognition and gratitude washed over her, and Emily felt the weight of the day gain an unexpected urgency as they walked away from the fray. Emily couldn't shake the feeling that something significant was about to unfold, something that could alter the course of her life forever. But as they stepped into the quieter corridor, a sudden hush echoed through the air. A flicker of tension loomed, and Emily turned, instinctively, just in time to see familiar faces, friends from before, those who once mattered staring wide-eyed as if caught in a scandalous moment. What would they think? And what did she want to reveal? About herself next? The corridor wrapped around them, dimly lit and shadowed, creating a small world away from the celebration. Emily's breath hitched as she caught sight of her friends across the way. Their expressions were a mix of surprise and judgment, like they had just witnessed something extraordinary and disapproving all at once. Emily, her old friend Sarah called out, stepping forward with a blend of eagerness and concern. Who is this? This is Alexander, Emily replied, her heart pounding. The confidence she felt just moments ago was slipping away. We were just what? Having a moment alone at a wedding? Sarah interjected, barely masking the incredulity in her tone. Emily felt exposed, the camaraderie she shared with her friends mixing with the vulnerability of the moment. I was just talking about the ceremony. We were discussing how it's nice to be honest in a place like this, she stammered, desperately searching for the right words. Alexander, sensing the tension, stepped up beside her. I found Emily's perspective refreshing, he stated, his voice steady. There's so much more beyond the glitz and glamour. The response from Sarah was quick. Right. Because a rich guy like you would know about the struggles of ordinary life. She tilted her head, her doubt evident. Emily's cheeks flushed, awareness prickling at the back of her mind. Give him a chance, Sarah. The words felt foreign even as they escaped her lips. She realized she was defending a man she barely knew, motivated by a hidden thrill in parsing the layers of his intrigue. Are you really okay, Emily? Another friend chimed in, a hint of worry painting their voice. This guy looks like he stepped right out of a magazine. What is actually happening here? For a moment, Emily wished she could retreat into the past when everything felt simpler. The safety of familiarity was comforting, but she recognized that she wouldn't grow in the shadows of what once was. I'm fine, she asserted with more conviction than she felt. Actually, I think this is the most honest conversation I've had in a long time. Alexander's presence beside her felt grounding, as if he understood the whirlwind of emotions churning inside her. He turned to her friends, his expression firm yet inviting. I understand why you're concerned, but I assure you, I'm not here to add to the superficiality. I admire someone who speaks their truth. The silence stretched like an elastic band, tightening with possibilities. Was it a leap of faith they were witnessing? Emily felt the ripple of doubt still cast by her friends. She wanted to scream that she wasn't a stranger to this world. She had lived in its shadows for too long. Maybe you should come and try talking to him too, Sarah, Emily challenged, winced yet hopeful. You might see I'm not making a mistake. Maybe we all need a change in perspective. Sarah opened her mouth in protest, but the challenge hung in the air like a spell. The guests in the hallway briefly exchanged glances, expressions of disbelief turning to intrigue. Emily felt a swell of determination rising within her. This was her moment of truth, where she defined what connection really meant. As the whispers around them began to ebb, Emily turned back to Alexander, whose steady gaze reassured her anxieties. "So where were we?" she asked, a nervous smile breaking through. "The truth about what lies behind this facade we live in and how we can break free from it," he replied, leaning in closer, their worlds colliding for just a moment. But before they could delve deeper, another figure stepped into the corridor, a woman in a flowing gown, face bright with the energy of the party but the sharpness of intensity in her eyes. "Alexander," she exclaimed, as if she owned the air around him. "There you are? I've been looking for you." Emily's heart sank. Who was this woman, and what did she want? Would she become a challenge to everything that had just begun to take root between them? Questions flooded her mind. Was this woman part of the privileged life Alexander mentioned? Would she derail whatever connection they had started? The tension simmered again, and Emily sensed that the moment for vulnerability was about to expand into chaos. What would it mean for her journey if she embraced this tumult? Would she risk everything for a man she had just met, or would the shells around her compress her back into her old life? And as the laughter and music from the celebration grew louder, a whisper of uncertainty danced around Emily. Could she truly find her voice amid the turmoil that awaited? Emily felt as if the ground beneath her feet had shifted. Suddenly, the warmth she felt while talking to Alexander was being overshadowed by this newcomer. The woman, with her striking gown and confident demeanor, commanded attention, and Emily had the unsettling urge to shrink back. She for sure wasn't going to let that happen. "Is this where you've been hiding?" the woman asked, a bright smile masking a razor-edged tone. She glanced at Emily, sizing her up as if wondering what she was doing in Alexander's orbit. "I'm Olivia. We're in the same social circles, though it's possible we haven't crossed paths yet." "Emily," she managed, forcing a smile even as doubts and insecurities gnawed at her. "Nice to meet you." "Nice to meet you too." Olivia's voice dripped with sugar, but her eyes hardened just slightly. Emily didn't miss it. "Have you two met at the party?" "I thought I felt a spark in the air," Olivia continued, her gaze darting back and forth between Emily and Alexander. "You could say I know Alexander quite well, perhaps better than anyone else." A burst of insecurity cascaded through Emily, a wave of self-doubt crashing over her. Did Olivia really know him, or was she just the type to flaunt her connections? "Emily was just telling me how refreshing honesty is," Alexander interjected, his voice steady, trying to redirect the conversation. "I'm beginning to believe she might be onto something, aren't you, Emily?" Emily nodded quickly, feeling a mix of gratitude and panic. "Yes, I feel like honesty can be so interesting," Olivia interrupted, her playful smirk cutting through Emily's words. "But does that honestly work here? Why wouldn't it?" Emily shot back, surprised at her own boldness. The beat of her heart quickened with newfound courage. "Because this space is all about pretense," Olivia laughed lightly, but the glint in her eyes told a different story. "This wedding is glamour personified. Be careful, dear. You might get hurt stepping out of your comfort zone too quickly." As Olivia spoke, Emily felt a rush in her chest. Was she about to let this woman dictate her experience? The fire in her spirit ignited. "I believe it's always worth taking a risk," she declared, her voice stronger, more assertive. Alexander's gaze flickered to her, pride reflected in his expression despite the tension. "I think you're right," he added, turning to Olivia. "Emily's perspective is valuable. We could all benefit from a little less pretense." Olivia clenched her teeth slightly, a shadow of surprise crossing her face. "Well, if you say so. I guess we'll see how long that lasts." Her words were wrapped in sarcasm, but Emily didn't shrink back. She refused to be pushed aside. "What if," Emily dared to say, "we each share something honest? Something we typically wouldn't, given the glamour of this environment?" "Interesting concept," Olivia replied, tilting her head, intrigue flashing in her eyes. Emily felt the room spin around her as she extended a surprise invitation. "Like maybe something that scares us about being here?" The thought hung in the air, leading the moment into a tantalizing uncertainty, beckoning them to reveal the hidden layers beneath their facades. Before she knew it, laughter erupted from other gathering guests nearby, who had overheard the challenge. Emily felt the weight slip off her shoulders, buoyed by the support brewing from others. "So who wants to start?" Alexander asked, his gaze locking with Emily's, igniting something unspoken and electric between them. As Olivia hesitated, Emily's heart raced. She suddenly felt a wave of conviction. She wanted this. She wanted to push boundaries, to explore the truth held beneath layers and smiles. Then, Alexander's next words carved a path through the tension. "I want to go first." "Wait, what?" Olivia's tone dipped, instantly intrigued. "Because sometimes the truth holds the key to unlocking a genuine connection. And maybe it starts with me," he said, the gravity in his voice thickening the air around them. Emily braced herself, excitement and fear mingling within her. Was this the moment when everything changed? Would they all be willing to dive into something real? As Alexander prepared to share, Emily was left wondering just how far they all would go and whether it would bring them closer or drive them apart. The swelling anticipation filled the corridor, a breath before the plunge. What would he reveal? And would his truth intertwine with hers, setting them on a path neither had anticipated? An electric hush fell over the crowd as Alexander cleared his throat, visibly collecting his thoughts. Emily's heart raced, the weight of expectation pressing down on her. A slight tremor in his hands contrasted with his steady gaze, hinting at the vulnerability beneath his composed exterior. "I've struggled with feeling like I don't belong," he started, and Emily's breath caught in her throat. "My family, everyone thinks we have it all together. Wealth, power, connections. But behind all the glitz, it's lonely. I often feel like I'm just playing a part in a script written by someone else." His voice was soft, steady yet edged with an unmistakable melancholy. She saw Olivia's expression shift slightly, her usual confident facade betraying a flicker of something softer, maybe even sympathetic. "I know how it feels to be surrounded by people and still feel invisible," Alexander continued. "I think that's why I'm drawn to honesty. I crave real connections, moments that cut through the facades we keep up." The air thickened with emotion, and Emily felt a thrill at his words. He was revealing himself, piece by piece, and it made her want to share too. What would it feel like if she opened up as well? Olivia crossed her arms, her initial intrigue now replaced by a flicker of annoyance. "That's nice and all, but how do you expect us to connect on that level in a place like this?" "By being brave," Alexander replied immediately, direct and unwavering. "By stepping into the discomfort instead of running from it." Emily could see that Olivia grappled with his challenge, uncertainty flickering in her eyes. Shadows of discontent washed over her, but maybe there was a chance for shift, for growth. "If I'm brave enough to speak up," Emily said just above a whisper, "I think we can become more than just faces in a crowd. I want to embrace this. I want to feel." She didn't know where the words were coming from, but she felt them surge up, pushing her to speak. There was a hush as the eyes of the small gathering turned toward her, drawn in by the sincerity in her voice. She locked her gaze on Alexander, finding strength in those deep, probing eyes. "My fear about the wedding is I fear I don't really know how to be a part of this world. I feel like I'm playing dress up, pretending to fit into a life that's not my own." She swallowed hard, tasting the truth on her lips. "And that terrifies me," she added, the confession falling into a gentle silence. As she spoke, she felt a ripple of understanding pass through the group, a collective exhale shared in the space. Perhaps Olivia's mask was finally cracking. Her sharp exterior softened as she began to process what Emily had revealed. "I get that. It's easy to hide behind the glamour and forget how to actually connect. Using vulnerability as a strength, that's the goal, right?" Alexander interjected, a quiet enthusiasm rising in his voice. They were drawing closer, each unveiling layers of themselves that screamed for recognition. Emily felt energy shifting amongst them, weaving an invisible bond that made the society around them dissolve into a distant hum. Olivia hesitated, her gaze flitting between the two of them. "All right," she finally said, the fight draining from her voice. "Maybe I can share a truth too." The air was thick with possibility. Emily waited, breath held, the excitement edging into tension. What truth would Olivia unveil? Would it change their rhythm or deepen their connection? Before Olivia could speak, a sudden commotion erupted from the back of the room. Guests murmured and shifted, A wave of curiosity sweeping through as laughter and shouts grew louder. Someone was suddenly vying for attention, shattering the intimate moment they were sharing. Emily's heart sank, unsure whether this disturbance would derail everything they'd built so far. But then she caught a glimpse of the intruder, a tall figure moving toward them with an unmistakable aura. Her stomach clenched, heart racing anew. This was no ordinary guest. Something in the air shifted, hinting at an unexpected twist. Who was he, and what would he bring with him? Would he sidetrack the journey they were about to embark on, or add another layer? Emily felt the energy swell again, anticipation bubbling beneath the surface. In a room full of facades, was it time for the ultimate reveal? As the crowd parted, Emily's eyes widened. The intruder stepped into view, a tall man dressed in a sleek tuxedo. His hair was dark and tousled, eyes sparkling with mischief and confidence. The laughter that had drawn all attention shifted, becoming a blend of anticipation and intrigue. Who was this man, and why did it feel as though he were breaking into their world with an air of familiarity? "Ladies and gentlemen," he announced, voice booming yet playfully laced with charm. "I apologize for interrupting, but I come with a proposal." A ripple of laughter and whispers danced through the crowd. Emily exchanged a glance with Alexander and Olivia. They were equally mesmerized, curiosity etched on their faces. "I'm Jackson," the man proclaimed, flashing a captivating smile. "And I have just acquired the best-kept secret of this wedding, a hidden invitation." He gestured dramatically, as if conjuring something out of thin air. Emily's heart raced. What could this mean? Was this another one of those extravagant displays of wealth that usually left her feeling even more out of place? Or was there something below the surface that could connect to the honesty Alexander had just spoken about? An invitation to a gathering after the main event. Jackson continued, unyielding in his energy. For those willing to step outside their comfort zones and embrace the chaos. Whoessen? His eyes darted across the crowd, igniting anticipation like a spark to dry leaves. Is this some kind of joke? Olivia's skepticism broke through the moment. Though her arms were unfolding, the tension easing just a bit. Jackson's mouth curled into a smirk. "Oh, trust me, you'll want to join. It'll be like nothing you've experienced before. And it's truly exclusive." A few curious guests began to murmur and nod, sensing the shift. Emily's heart raced not out of fear but excitement. "What do you mean by exclusive?" she called out, her voice surprising even herself. "Only those brave enough to admit they're not perfect get to play," he replied, giving her a knowing look. "Do you dare to push past the surface?" In that moment, something shifted within Emily. The weight of her insecurities lessened. Could this be a chance to dive deeper into herself and redefine her experience in this world of opulence? She glanced at Alexander, who looked just as intrigued. His encouragement still lingered in the air, whispering, "Be brave. Count me in," she blurted out, surprising herself. A ripple of excitement splashed through her consciousness, as if a door had cracked open in her mind. "What do I need to do?" Jackson's eyes sparkled, his infectious energy drawing others in. "Just be ready to let go and embrace the ride. Meet me at the back door in 30 minutes. With a wink, he pivoted and walked through the crowd, leaving behind a trail of intrigued whispers. "Are we really doing this?" Olivia asked, her tone a mix of excitement and disbelief. Emily felt a surge of empowerment. Why not? It's a chance to be honest, to connect. I won't let the fear of the unknown hold me back anymore. Besides her, Alexander nodded in agreement, a spark of exhilaration igniting between them. "I'm with you. This could turn out to be something remarkable." But as the anticipation surged, a sliver of doubt crept in. What if this invitation was more than they were ready for? What if the secrets unveiled were too painful to bear? Despite the looming uncertainty, Emily felt alive. Would this risky choice forge deeper connections, or lead them all down a path they would regret? As the countdown began, she took a deep breath, already picturing the exhilarating chaos that awaited. In her mind, she whispered, "Maybe this is how I find my real place in the world." And just as she turned to share her excitement with her friends, her gaze caught a flicker of something unsettling in the crowd. Who else was watching? Were there hidden stakes she hadn't yet considered? The thrill of adventure hung in the air, but the question lingered. What lay on the other side of that hidden invitation? As the minutes ticked away, Anticipation wrapped around Emily like a warm blanket, but an undercurrent of anxiety thrummed beneath it. Olivia, still hugging skepticism like a prized possession, rolled her eyes. So what if it's just some kind of wild party to flaunt wealth? We could end up regretting it. Maybe, Emily replied, her heart racing with an odd mix of fear and excitement. But what if it's exactly what we need? To break free from all this pretense? She scanned the room, where laughter mingled with the clinking of glasses. The extravagant decor, the perfect smiles, and the constant self-promotion that seemed to flow like wine it all felt stifling at times. Tell me you're not seriously considering this, Olivia shot back, her brows arched skeptically. But it was too late. Emily's resolve was already set. She had to know what lay beyond the confines of the wedding decorum. I think I am, Emily said, her voice steady. I want to explore more than just the gilded surface. I want depth. Alexander, who had been silently weighing the invitation's implications, finally chimed in. I trust you, Em. And what better way to challenge ourselves than to take a leap? I'm in. A wave of relief washed over Emily. Together, they would navigate whatever lay ahead. As she glanced back toward the entrance, a hint of Jackson's teasing smile lingered in her mind. What could possibly go wrong? The next few minutes felt like a blur. They engaged in small talk, feigning interest in the guests' elaborate tales. But inside, they were all swirling with questions about the gathering to come. Would it be a celebration of wealth or a genuine moment to break down feigned facades? Okay, we're going, Olivia finally relented, throwing her hands up in mock defeat. Just don't say I didn't warn you when something messes up. Emily chuckled, grateful for her friend's reluctant support. Trust me, embracing chaos sounds exhilarating. With liveliness buzzing in their hearts, they positioned themselves near the back door when the clock struck 30 minutes, feeling like butterflies on the brink of flight. Jackson awaited them, leaning against the doorframe, his expression inviting yet enigmatic. Ready for the adventure? He asked, his eyes sparkling. Emily nodded enthusiastically, but deep down, she fought the flutter of nerves. What awaited them? Jackson ushered them through the door, and the noise of the wedding faded behind them like a closing curtain. Outside, the night air was cool and brisk, a stark contrast to the heated atmosphere inside. Strange sounds and lights beckoned them from a nearby avenue. The street was alive with energy, pulsing to an unseen rhythm. Follow me, Jackson said, his confidence unwavering. He led them through a hastily assembled group of partygoers dressed in outfits that somehow seemed to shine brighter than those left inside. Colors, music, laughter, they all felt liberating. Just as Emily began to embrace this new experience, she noticed something off in the crowd, a shadow shifting behind the laughter and flow of bodies. A flash of recognition sent a chill through her. It was a face she knew too well, one that had haunted her existence for years. Her heart thumped louder. Could this night be about to take a turn she hadn't anticipated? Em, you okay? Alexander's voice broke through her thoughts. She forced a smile, but inside her mind raced. Underneath the thrill of the night, darker currents swirled. Just as she prepared to turn and reveal what was troubling her, a deafening laugh erupted from the group around them. Let us get this party started, Jackson shouted, and suddenly, firecrackers of excitement exploded around them. Emily inhaled deeply, a blend of fear and resolve enveloping her senses. Could she confront what awaited her as they pushed deeper into this wild affair? With every step, they moved closer to the limits of their experiences. What truths would come to light? What challenges awaited them in this world behind the polished curtains? The hidden invitation had opened a door, but was she ready for the shadows that waited on the other side? The pulse of the night enveloped Emily as Jackson led them further into the vibrant chaos of the street party. Music spilled from every corner, blending with laughter and shouts of excitement, creating a tapestry of sound that resonated deep in her chest. But her mind was adrift, fixated on that familiar face she had seen in the crowd. Internally, she was wrestling with a whirlwind of emotions, torn between the magnetic allure of the party and the unsettling recognition that had ignited her insecurities. Each colorful costume that whirled by felt like a reminder of past choices, an illusion of happiness that she desperately wanted to grab hold of, yet feared it might slip through her fingers like sand. Hey, what has got you all spaced out? Olivia asked, catching Emily off guard. She plastered on a smile, but it faltered as she searched for the right words. "It's just a lot to take in," Emily muttered, her voice hardly above the din. "I thought it would feel freeing, but you saw him, didn't he? Olivia finished for her, her eyes narrowing with concern. "The one who shouldn't be here? You can't let him ruin your night." Emily's breath hitched. "It's complicated." "Maybe," Olivia said, her tone light but firm. "But this is our chance to escape for a bit. Let's not waste it." Reinvigorated by her friend's encouragement, Emily tried to shift her focus back to the pulse of the party. Bright flashes of lights caught her attention, illuminating the faces of people dancing, laughing, and letting loose. She caught sight of Alexander, who wore an easy grin, blending perfectly into the exuberance surrounding them. He lifted a drink in her direction, and she could feel the warmth of camaraderie sparking between them. Trust blossomed in her as she stilled her worries. After all, wasn't this what they had stepped out for? To shatter the confines of expectation and discover who they were outside the polished frames of their lives. "All right, who's ready for some fun?" Jackson's voice rang out, bringing Emily's scattered thoughts back into focus. With a contagious energy that seemed uniquely his, he waved his arms dramatically and ushered everyone toward a makeshift dance floor. As the music shifted to a more upbeat tune, Olivia grabbed Emily by the wrist, pulling her into the throng of bodies swaying to the rhythm. For a moment, the earlier tension faded, replaced by the thrill of movement and laughter. Emily surrendered to the beat, each pulse releasing her grip on anxiety. "See, this is what you needed," Olivia shouted over the music, her eyes sparkling. "Let it go, Em." Emily laughed, for the first time that night, truly enjoying herself. Just as she twirled, a sudden movement caught her peripheral vision. She turned and there he was, that haunting face emerging from the crowd with an intensity that made her stomach churn. It was Daniel. Of all the people she hadn't wanted to see, the man who had once consumed her emotions was now standing just a few feet away, staring straight at her. His presence sliced through the waves of joy like a knife, leaving behind a wake of old wounds and regrets. "Emily," he called, a slow smile forming on his lips that felt unsettlingly familiar yet foreign. "You came." Her heart raced, caught between wanting to flee and an irresistible pull to confront what she had buried. This party had been a refuge, a break from the rehearsed lives they led, but now it felt like an impending storm. "What are you doing here?" she managed to ask, her voice barely above a whisper, trembling with hesitation and defiance. "Looking for you," he said, his tone smooth but layered with something deeper. "Can we talk?" Emily's world spun. Just when she thought she had broken free, the reality of her past threatened to reel her back in. What did he want from her? "Do you think this is the right time?" She shot back, her heart pounding now with the surge of conflict. "Maybe it's the only time," Daniel said, the intensity in his gaze piercing through the mayhem around them. The music faded into a dull hum in her ears as time stood still. In that moment, suddenly engrossed by the overwhelming uncertainty, Emily realized that answering him could unearth more than just forgotten memories. Would she be able to face her past amidst a night that was supposed to be an escape? "Do I even want to?" she thought, frozen in the crowd of dancing bodies that felt both liberating and imprisoning. Would she find the courage to confront him? Or would the weight of history trap her in its familiar grasp? The night was far from over, and with it came a decision that could change everything once again. Emily stood wide-eyed, the sound of laughter and music fading into a distant murmur. Daniel had always had this effect on her, creating a vortex that pulled her in, making all else blur in the backdrop. But today felt different. Today, she had rediscovered her voice. She had just made a profound statement at the wedding, igniting a movement of honesty in a world built of facades. Yet here stood Daniel, a relic from her past, capable of unraveling her progress. "Why are you really here?" She could barely whisper over the throbbing bass, her heart racing. He stepped closer, lowering his voice. "I wanted to talk about us. I know things got messy, and did you follow me?" The accusation hung in the air, sharp and trembling. Fear coiled in her stomach. This was exactly what she wanted to escape, old wounds reopening, pulling her back into the shadows she had fought so hard to leave behind. "No," he replied, his brow furrowing. "Much like the hidden invitation you found, Fate seems to have a way of bringing us together. His gaze narrowed, and she felt dangerously caught between sadness and anger. But she wasn't the same lost girl. This was her moment to stand tall, a moment to reclaim her power. You don't get to just show up and act like everything is okay, she said, her voice gaining strength. Around them, the dance floor surged, people moving with their own stories, blissfully unaware of the storm brewing just beyond the revelry. Emily took a deep breath, inhaling the crisp night air. She wouldn't be cornered. Not here, not now. I'm not trying to cause trouble, Daniel said, his tone softening slightly. I just to what? She interrupted, resolute. Remind me of the past? Drag me back to all the insecurities I thought I'd left behind? He opened his mouth to speak, but she could see that her words were hitting him. They were piercing through the shield he had built, just like the overblown walls of the wedding venue, polished but hollow. The pulsating music roared back into focus, and she felt eyes upon them. It was a mix of pity and intrigue. She could sense Alexander watching, his presence a steady force amidst the chaos. Would he support her, or would he abandon her to this wave of uncertainty? With a determined look, she sought his gaze, feeling that surge of assurance wash over her once more. Isn't that what we've always done? Daniel probed, his voice momentarily defensive yet perplexed. Held on to what drags us back instead of what lifts us up? Emily's breath hitched. He wasn't wrong. She had spent so much time dwelling on what could have been. That's a convenient argument, she replied fiercely. But living in the shadows isn't true living at all. In her gut, she felt an urge to break away. She had left that part of herself behind. Yet, something stirred in the depths, an unsettling need to confront the past, not as a victim, but as a survivor. You don't own my journey anymore, she exclaimed. I don't have to let you define who I am. As she spoke, she took a step back, creating physical distance. It felt liberating. Somewhere in the back of her mind, she recognized that she needed to let go not just of Daniel, but all the burdens he represented. Then, a voice broke through the haze. Emily. It was Olivia, pushing her way from the dancing crowd, her expression a blend of concern and urgency. You okay? Yeah, I'm okay, Emily responded, her words feeling like a shield of strength. Really? Jackson approached too, a buoyant grin etched across his face. What's this? Confrontation of the year? He teased, sensing the tension. Or maybe a reckoning, Daniel interjected, trying to regain control. But this wasn't his story anymore, it was hers. No reckoning necessary, Emily said, her refusal wrapping around her like armor. I have new adventures waiting, beyond your reach. A sense of relief surged through her, mixed with exhilaration. Now or never. She planted her feet firmly and turned towards Daniel once more. If you're here to bring back the shadows, don't bother. I'm moving ahead regardless of who happens to be watching. Just then, Emily caught sight of Alexander, who stood nearby, his eyes alight with admiration and encouragement. In that moment, she felt an unwavering connection, a bond forged in honesty. Come on, let us dance, she called to Olivia and Jackson as the music pulsed back into the foreground, cutting through the negativity. Her heart swelled, driving away lingering doubts. The three raced toward the dance floor, arms linked, laughter spilling as they immersed themselves in the vibrant atmosphere. It was a cascade of freedom. As they danced, Emily took a glance back at Daniel, whose face revealed confusion, a man caught in unexpected farewell. Were there regrets written in his features? Maybe, but she wouldn't dwell on that. The shadows behind her faded, illuminated by the radiance of friends who celebrated her, not as a wealthy heiress or a lost girl, but as Emily, the brave soul who stood up and refused to back down. She twirled, a buoyant whirl of color and joy, ready for whatever came next, a new chapter waiting on the horizon, as the night hummed with the electric promise of change. And within that moment, she couldn't help but think, wasn't that the real wedding gift? The chance to redefine who you are amidst chaos and connection? The night stretched on, filled with laughter and uninhibited dance, and as she spun beneath the twinkling lights, Emily knew she had finally found her place in this beautifully unpredictable world. Don't wait another second. You need to subscribe now to catch the next magical stories we'll share. Hit that like button, your support fuels our journey. Comment below and tell us how this ending made you feel. And finally, Share this video with at least 5 friends who need to experience this transformation. It's time to dive into the beauty of change together.